Kia ora koutou katoa. So thank you for joining us in all our various time zones. It's awesome to have so many on the call between Auckland, Birmingham, and Melbourne, we see. So my name is Maddie, and I'm the curator here at Corbin Estate Arts Centre, and we're joined, of course, by Numa and Rosanna, who I'll hand over to introduce themselves in just a bit. We are going to be talking a bit about their project here in Tamaki at the moment at Corbin's, Forgotten Vessels Waiting for the Early Dawn, which is an exhibition that's across all three of our gallery spaces. And you guys are going to talk a little bit about what you're doing on the other side of the world. So thank you all for joining us. I'll hand over to Rowan Numa to introduce himself.
Kia ora everybody. It's a very good morning here. So I'm currently sitting here in Birmingham in the UK. So a little bit groggy this morning, but it's I was up anyway thanks to a bit of jet lag. So you'll have to forgive me for being a little foggy. But yes, so I'm Rosanna. What was I doing? Introducing myself. So I'm an art. I've forgotten already.
Right.
So yeah. So I'm one of the I'm an artist and sort of cross through a lot of disciplines with craft and performance and making and collaborating. But yeah, I'll hand it over to Numa. Sorry, I'm not very articulate this morning.
Kia ora ana koutou katoa. Yeah. Ko Numanga Tini Tiaraki o Mangaia, Fraser McKenzie. And it's just an honor to be here. The same artist. Thanks to Rosanna on all those things too, Really honored to be here, and we're sharing our time here in Birmingham, doing other crazy art stuff. But we were lucky enough to have our show together, which is a really nice mark for us to have this show together. So I'm just really grateful to have this opportunity to do all these fun things with my sister. And yeah, really excited to be here with everyone. Thank you.
Awesome. Oh, well, thanks to you both. And yes, really appreciate the early wake-up call for you. But speaking of, I thought we'd start. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing in the UK and the project over there, which has been going on for a little while, but of course, and Ro, you've been there for a little bit longer, and Numa's just gone over on Monday. So do you want to talk to us a bit about what you're doing?
Oh, yeah. This is one of those projects that it just feels amazing to actually finally have made it in human form, in person. So it's like we started talking to Fierce Festival that are based here out of Birmingham. So it's a big performance festival that's been happening for over 20. I think they're celebrating their 25th year of bringing in a variety of different performance-based works. But they were working. They had an opportunity to work with the Birmingham Museum. So Aaron had sort of met me, had seen that I'd worked with a lot of museums. So he asked if I would be interested in creating a Savage Club something in the Birmingham Museum. So that was an offer that I just couldn't refuse, actually. It was like, so we developed a very large-scale club room and working with the museum collections as well as the Savage Club collection. So we've all got our personal collections that we sort of kind of imagine that if we had a club room, what we'd put in it. So, and it's been a real patchwork of funding and COVID and, and lockdown. So it's been, it was, but we managed to do it. So it's the first time I've ever curated online. So it was basically that the whole project was curated through WhatsApp and Zoom meetings and sending funny little photos to each other. So it built up a real great relationship with with the museum curator here, Victoria Osborne, and the Fierce crew with Aaron Wright and Pippa Firth. They've just been incredible. But I know, but it's just even things like even the freight, the price of the freight to get our stuff home has tripled.
Oh,
So it's like, it's really hair raising actually. So as long as it gets home.
yeah.
But yeah, I think we've got over 125 sort of objets of, of our own taonga, mea sina. So, and now a lot of the savages in human form have turned up to actually bring some life and activate the space. So, and then as another, not a side project, but woven into the project, we've been working with the Auckland Museum and the Fiji Museum, as with the Birmingham Museum. So I spent a week in Fiji working with the Fiji youth and getting them to sort of experience what it was like to go into the back of the stores and respond to their collections. And that's all going to culminate on Friday night, when we're going to have a big old fashioned come get dressed up and come and party with us night. But we'll have a lot of beautiful things. We've got a live feed from the Vo Dance Company in Fiji, and they're doing a dance response that will be fed through the screen, and we've got sort of some of our younger members who have never done anything before, and then people like Numa and Katrina and a few of us others that have, we're sort of racking up a few Savage gigs now. We've done Hawaii, we've done Brisbane and Birmingham. So let's bring it back home one day.
Awesome. And that must have been, of course, trying to curate something online. That is such a challenge, and so good that you can be there in person now. And it's awesome for us to have the connection back here. And are you both doing a couple of workshops as well while you're over there?
Yeah, we are. Besides Friday, hosting at our late night event, Colonial Karma, in the museum, which is brilliant, and supported by Fierce and the museum. It's really special. Then we have on Sunday, we have the artist talks. Awesome. And also we'll be doing t-shirt printing, which is something that's always been a part of Savage Club. There's one of the that we if you really want to be a part of our movement, that this is the time, come and get your hands dirty and do the do, and that's that making, creating and sharing time together, without both aspects, like Friday night will be a massive thing, but Sunday's more of a personal connection with our communities that we built here. The museum's had it for quite a long time, and really take my hat off to Rosanna and Jamie YTT, the hard work that they did to make this happen through all those trials and tribulations, and really trials and tribulations that we got here. So really grateful.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, just as you were both talking about that, I just remembered, an early meeting we had about this show, and I remember talking about that trouble with the freight and trying to, kind of maneuver different things. So yeah, congratulations to you both. While we're on the topic, I thought it would be a good chance for you to talk a little bit more about Savage Club, and maybe you, Ro, can kick us off just how Savage Club was formed and the kind of kaupapa behind that too.
Well, yeah, it's it came out of an art residency that I had at the Museum of Anthropology and Art in Vancouver, which is where I met Numa, actually. It's quite interesting how I know everything sort of interconnects. So I was researching some collections, and I realized there was this name kept coming up, Frank Burnett. And he was a Scotsman, and he had come over to Canada, and he'd made a fortune and lost a fortune, made a fortune, lost a fortune, then made a fortune, and bought himself a boat, and then went cruising around the Pacific, and he wrote a series of books of his travels and collected all these sort of wild and wonderful things, which then became the founding collections that actually started the museum that I was working in. And there was a lot of materials from Samoa and all sorts, and lots of photographs of he had a whole collection of half naked dusky maiden postcards. I was like, Frankie. So he was like, it was, I know, when I was going through his diary, but yeah, so they gave me access to like his personal kind of diaries, and in it was a card, a greeting card that was, you were cordially invited to, and it had Savage Club on it. You were cordially invited, and it had a little Frank Burnett will talk about his travels in the South Seas. So I was really like, Savage Club. I was like, oh, I know a few savages. So, but anyway, I Googled the Savage Club and found it was a gentleman's club. They'd been started in about 18, oh my gosh, I always get the thing 79. In fact, it was a bit earlier because the Auckland Savage Club started then. So it started in England with a bunch of self-proclaimed bohemian poets and artists, and they would meet at pubs and eat, drink, and be merry, and talk. I was like, oh, this sounds great. Like, look at them. But then I kept digging more and more into it, and it was like, it ended up becoming a very, very exclusive men's only gentlemen's club, and a lot of their club rooms were all filled with things with from other cultures. Then they were dressing up in a lot of these garments, and then New Zealand itself had about 13 savage clubs, and then they had the Orphans Club, which was another 16. But and they would dress up in Maori regalia, and they'd call each other Maori names like rangatira and toa and stuff. So there was definitely, the more I dug into it, the more kind of distasteful it started to be. But in the end, I was sort of like, oh, you know what? If you can't join them, do your own one. So I actually, and of course I saw that there was a var in the Savage. So that's the sort of Samoan index, which is this relational space that is really beautiful, active space that creates relationships. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to put the var in the Savage, and I'm going to make my own club, and we can, when we do things, we won't be, we will know the names of the things that people made, and we will actually sort of, we won't appropriate any other culture because it is our culture. So I did, yeah. So the first sort of thing that I did was in Canada, and I sort of didn't really think much of it actually, but then I did another one in England, in London, because I was based in London at the time. And then we did a few more. And then I was in the Cook Islands with Annie O'Neill, and we held a Savage Club meeting there. Then I did one in New Zealand. And then 12 years later, it's grown into this really kind of not complex, but really amazing sort of it's just taken a life of its own, the club. And now it's got actual club members, and we come together to learn from each other and play. It's really a space for us to play that maybe you don't get to do with your sort of individual practice, because it really is about being a collective, about investigating. So I call it cultivating. We do a lot of research-based work, looking into museums and archives, really trying to uncover a lot of our own sort of cultural sort of knowledge that has either been lost or hard to find, or we fabricate and we make the things. We love to use our hands. A lot of us are practicing artists, and a lot of us are writers, and then we activate, which is when we bring the body, and that's where we invite people, what I call usually the spectacle, where people get to come and actually kind of meet us, and we activate these relationships and cement them. And then the final phase is you deactivate that space, you close up the project, and then we go off into our normal lives until we get another call from somebody somewhere going, would you like to play with us? So it's yeah, so membership sometimes is small, sometimes is large, and yeah, we've definitely, you get your membership by coming and printing your own t-shirt.
Mm.
And yeah, and you don't ask this thing. If you have to ask, I'm sorry, it's just like, nah, you've blown it. So don't even ask me how to become a club member. Just come up and go, when can I print my t-shirt, please?
Is that what you did, Numa?
Basically, yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Take me with you. Let's do this.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's so awesome to hear about that, and that you've grown something that's so based on community and collective, and something really positive that out of that really insidious past as well. And speaking of that, kind of links us back to this exhibition. So the project is across all 3 gallery spaces, and I'm currently sitting in our Ana Pika Pika space. So I thought that you could, which this speaks to your joint studio that is here on site at Corbin's normally. But I thought we could start talking about this project in relation to this space, and why this space was important to be part of the exhibition.
Sorry, we just saw Grace. Hey, Grace! Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Ana Pika Pika is the name of our actual studio space, which is the Bat Cave. we thought of once we learned that there was actually Pika Pika on site. It just felt like the right fit, and it is an extension of who we are, and we tried to kind of replicate it in a nicer fashion and pull out some things that maybe some people don't get to see. Ro had some great works that she'd kind of had in her little trove there, waiting to come out and bless the walls. And yeah, I'm really proud of that space. It is a good reflection of us. It's got some of strong works, and it's really
like
cool
the
to kind of share
it's
it.
the really tidy version of our studio.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, normally the floor is a lot messier. Things are drawn on.
Yeah, this is how we vision our studio. It's really good, but
this is the manicured Ana Pika Pika.
Yeah, this is what the studio looks like. But it's like, because the studio is full of the flotsam and jetsam of it. That's what I love about the Corbin's Art Centre. It's like, they're proper studios. They're cluttered. I've got 30 years of art practice in there. I've got the Pacific Sisters, I've got the Savage Club, and then I've got my own artworks in there. So boy, and I live in a little house, so there's no way that any of that would fit anywhere in there. And it's also good because Numa lives on the other side of the city, so when we're in the studio together, we actually get to hang out, because there's a wall that separates us, but it's so thin we can just talk through the wall.
Yeah.
So it's a great space, and at the moment they're refurbishing and strengthening the walls, so we're not actually in the studios, and it's really nice to think that at the gallery that we've sort of got a little space nestling there that we can represent.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's what's so nice, because like Rose said, we're undergoing some quite significant earthquake re-strengthening on one of the old heritage buildings here. And for anyone who doesn't know Corbin Estate very well, it used to be a fully functioning vineyard run by the Corbin family. So it's great that we'll be nice and safe in the buildings, but unfortunately at the moment means that Ro and Numa's studio is one of those affected by that. So being able to have the space here is really great for us to still have your presence here on site and the presence here of Ana Pika Pika too. So sharing a studio, how does that, I know as well for this project, this is the first time you're exhibiting kind of side by side as individual practitioners as well, which is reflective of your working relationship in that joint studio space. So I wondered if you'd like to talk a little bit about that and the process.
Yeah, I mean, like Rose said, like it's great. It gives us an opportunity to really scheme and code it all and share ideas and just kind of, it's great for me to be able to sit across from Ro and see how she does her thing, which is impressive. It's like I'm lucky to have that and that we can share meals and talk and and it gives us an opportunity to, as all of Corbin's does, we have a great rapport there in community. We say whānau, family there too, that we're sharing our ideas and and you get to kind of bounce things off each other and kind of nut it out a bit and kind of tear it up and put it back together and so it's been great to have that ability to do that.
Yeah, it certainly keeps us really connected. I think otherwise it's sort of hard when you're sort of all over the place and you've also got your individual sort of practices as well. I've just in awe been watching Numa over the last couple of years just, really develop his carving skills. Went from doing one board, when was the first time you did a board? A couple of years ago, 4 years?
Yeah, maybe five years ago.
Maybe 5 years. Just watched him just like each one's got better and better and better. And now he just sits, he's like a machine. Honestly, I just sit there going, I'm like, I know I always feel like I'm too busy organizing things. I don't even feel like an artist half the time, but I can always go and sit down and watch a real one when I go sit down with Numa. like actually making things. It was like we did before we came over with the Savage Club, but he did a workshop with all of us and brought out all his amazing boards. Like, they've got their physical objects in themselves, artworks in themselves. And then, and he's just like, la, da, 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 and it's just like, and he's produced these amazing things. And it's just like, I spent 10 minutes going, who am I going to prepare? So, but, it's great that, we actually get to sort of teach each other different, our skill bases, which is sort of, one of the joys of actually, having a sort of collective space. And then the exhibitions were good because actually Numa and I very rarely get to exhibit really get asked to exhibit full stop. But so it's really amazing. Yeah. I'm sure people forget that I am actually an artist. It's like in New Zealand. So this one was great because we actually.
He's a vegetarian one.
Who's this one? It was just like, but yeah, so this was a great time because we each got to have a room each. And I mean, it was hard, I'm not going to lie, because I spent more time last year packing down my studio, and that really took away from the time, Madeline saw me a few times going, I should be creating something, but I'm packing it all away. But in a way it was good because it really sort of made me, I had to get had to think through what I could actually potentially do, so it pushed me in a different direction, and I really bounced off Numa's project, which I'll get him to talk about. But yeah, so my one was a direct response to Numa's work that he was doing with the hui.
Yeah, just when you were talking before about the being able, it's again that collaboration and being able to learn from each other, from sharing that space. I was just thinking about how nice it is that you've both got that kind of intimate understanding of the other one's practice, like you saying that about, remembering the first boards and things. That must be really valuable to have in your relationship, as artists side by side.
It's pretty special.
Yeah.
Pretty special. Yeah, we like the brother and sister
Yeah.
It's just like
Definitely.
the sort of art team, and then throw in, other, usually when we've worked together, it is with the Savage Club. So it's usually amongst a whole range of other artists like Jamie Waititi and Raina Sutton, and who else have we got in our team this time? And Ruth Woodbury's another solid one. So this was really special. It's just me and Noobs. So
Yeah.
we sat down. We're like, oh, okay, what are we going to do?
Yeah. I think what's cool is that our practices are kind of different, even though, a lot of the base of what I've got, that kind of learning skills and stuff that Ro helped me cultivate, and so it is that kind of cool reflection, and to like Ro said, for her to be like, oh, get back to getting into her roots, which is making, but she's growing her work so much more, and in a way that I can't really even comprehend sometimes, like to be like, oh, I'm not thinking of a soundscape and the deeper things in some say mine's a little more like hands-on, a little more so it's been really cool, and to do this show, it's kind of been special, and here we are doing something in Birmingham and having this, it's like, wow, reflecting back and going, wow, look what we've done together, look what we're doing together, and here we have this show, kind of a nice reflection of that in a place that we feel at home, that is, so it's been really great. And to the Hue is a perfect example of that for me, because it's just I was always curious about our ancestors' objects and stuff, and Ro is someone who has felt that same way, and she's nurtured that with me and with other friends of ours, to be curious and to look into things and dig deeper and check it out, and the idea of actually the Hue and just growing them, and that the timeline of trying to, and me, my art practice was kind of graffiti and all that stuff. It's really now stuff, and then to try something that's like, hey, let's, if I want to draw in a way and I don't know where to get them, I have to learn how to grow them first. So it's just this slowing down and trying to extend the idea and grow it and cultivate it, and then that sends you in these different directions, and you're learning from all these amazing people. I got my first Hue seeds from Delani, who's based in Hawaii, who's a couple maker, who, I just expressed my interest in, and she actually mailed me seeds. And actually in the room there's a postcard that's from her, and it's when I got the seeds, and it's those little reflections and those connecting through our communities and people that are like just nudging you on, people that go, yeah, if you're interested, it's there. Our ancestors made a great blueprint for us, but we can pick up those little pieces and try to, like really trying to emulate something that they did, but also take it in, bringing it into a new place as well, which is, I feel really lucky to have those, the ability to do that, and to have people that have, same thing, nurtured me, planted the seed, cultivated it, helped me and nudged me on to try these different things and grow it, so yeah, it's been the way people have reacted to the Hue, like I'm realizing how, yeah, it's a real Tonga, like it's really special, and that we shared it, and there's so much history in there that I'd learned just recently, and then a bit that I knew, and then just passing that on through the show has been really an honor, to go, wow, I'm just the next stepping stone for the next person that's going to learn something amazing. And we've even through the Hue last year, through my growing, we've had built our little Facebook community just in the messenger and the chats of people that I knew that were interested, and some that had experience, some that didn't, and we just been doing that. And then we've actually turned it into a community page on Facebook, so anyone can join on that if they're really curious and want to go down that path. And these are all the skills that have come out of my practice in the last few years, and things that like Rose helped me with, and our friend Annie, and all these, the sisters and the brothers, and all these. I'm just really happy that I get to be the next stone for the next person, and here we're gonna help more people to find their way back to their tupuna in a way, in a practice, in their love for it, so.
And so I was just thinking then, like, musing on the fact that you've titled your portion Forgotten Vessels. So that really ties into what you were just talking about. And do you want to talk a little bit about the different techniques that you've explored in the show? Because there's, first of all, many vessels, which is so fascinating to see for us all, but you've also used different techniques as well. So did you want to touch on some of those?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I called it Forgotten Vessels because the practice of them has basically disappeared, mainly because a new technology came in with the bucket, basically erased them, because you don't have to cultivate a bucket, and it lasts, and it can take a hiding and still be there. But it's this thing that it was a main thing for us to carry our water from, our water sources that held things that were sacred, and musical instruments, food, all these things. So it was just the idea of bringing that back, the idea of what I wanted to do with the show is go, hey, these things are here, and now we're pushing towards like eliminating things like plastic and stuff like that. It's about valuing the things of the past, the old ways, and bringing them into the new. And that's something I really I get excited about in my practice, is that kind of idea. And techniques from Aotearoa, from Hawaii, from across the Moana, and then even learning from other Hue culture, because it's still used heavily in Asia, Africa, obviously, it's one of those things, South America. And what's been great is so many people coming and telling me their story of Hue, or about their collection, where they found different ones, and and their appreciation for it, and sometimes we get caught in these little boxes of, oh, I like this thing and it feels really special. And then you realize, oh, wow, there's a whole bunch of people that are like me that love these things, but learning, I learned from our good friend Cora Allen about how to make the ink, by burning Cody and catching the lamp black, and then using that to mix. And then I mixed it with like a animal oil to help it bind better for me, and and applying that. So a lot of the darker pieces are like that. Tried wood burning, which is an old technique, but I used it with modern tools. I tried carving them, and then even lashing some of them, trying to learn from diagrams, from through articles from someone like Tirangi Hiroa, who luckily drawn these diagrams from the past. I could follow, trying to figure it out, trying to learn the lash. And then but that came through an article from someone in modern times in Hawaii that was following those same paths, and it's these little stepping stones along to try and figure it out. And and it's, you get an idea. I grew half of those Hue, and the other half were gifted, and so that means that someone believed in me and gave me, like, oh, you're doing this, okay, well, here's a Hue, if you need it for your show. And I went around and asked I've got part of different art groups, and the weaving group that's up at the Marae in Orake, which I live by, which is my wife's iwi, and and the love they shared me to give me Hue. And then we have the gardens up here, and they gave me Hue that they grew, but I gave them the seeds. So, and they were like, oh, now we have the Hue, and that reciprocation. And then, yeah, it's been so cool to see how it comes. And then even one of the hui there is grew on Corbin's outside of our studio at a pika pika, and was dried there, and it's each one of those has that little papanga or whakapapa story that it's where it came from and back, and it's been great to see that kind of reflection. And like, I'm lucky to do this, but I got a lot of love and a lot of help from others to support me in that show. So it's yeah, it's nice to share that. I'm definitely happy to tell that part of it, because I needed to, I couldn't have done all of that on my own. I would have probably had half a show, literally.
Yeah.
And half the techniques. And, yeah, to make it.
Oh, it's also awesome to hear that reinforced too about the community, because that is what comes through so much. You're seeing as well, it's just amazing the variation in that one kind of natural resource in the show, which for those of you who won't make it in to see the show, we do have great images up on the Corbin's website if you're interested. And just thinking about that, the gifting thing, I mean, one thing I just wanted to acknowledge is that the cultivation of hui, it's a long process, isn't it? It's not just it's not easy. Did you want to just explain to anyone who doesn't know kind of how they come to be the final vessel?
Oh, yes. Yeah, first of all, getting seeds is a little tricky. I think it's changing now as the kind of people have love for it. And in saying that, if you want to any seeds, you can go to Corbin's. I've left some at the desk there. So I told them, if anyone shows any interest, just give them some seeds and tell them about our page if they want to. It's some people charge, but I'm really keen to kind of get them back in our communities, and happy to share. I still have a big pile of seeds, and yeah, so they do grow similarly to a pumpkin. They have runners, and it can climb, and it needs space, and it needs a lot of water to get it going. And this is the time for us in Aotearoa. The springtime has come, and a lot of our friends have already got. I've got a bunch of seeds, that my wife's nurturing back at home for us to get in the ground. And once you've got them in the ground, and I find you need a sunny spot. You need out of the wind, preferably. I found the luck I've had is really growing them in a bit of either tall grass or bush, so they're protected from the wind. And then even learning, I've just learned a new technique through talking with others, is that you can make like a little harakeke donut or like a pillow for them to sit on, so they don't rot on the bottom in that last period of time. I've read that some will have flat stones once they get to a certain size, they'll set them on the flat stones. When they grow, they will sit flat on the ground. Some of the hui that I wrapped, I put a lash on one because it was a very bulbous one, and it can't sit on the ground. So I was like, oh, it will need a lashing, so that pushed me to try and learn that technique because it would just roll over if I set it on the ground. Yeah, so and it takes a full season, like as soon as spring kicked off and they're ready, when the hui comes and it's got its first tendril or vine, and that's after 4 or 5 leaves, that's when it's really good to go outside and into the ground, or like without kind of being really babied, and then it will run. And then also the flower, you need a special moth to help to propagate it for it to mate, but you can actually like the vanilla, you can take the flowers and complete the link there, as the bugs would do, the birds and the bees, and help it to propagate. And then even I've been growing them for a few years with really mixed results, but I finally found some people that had more experience, and they were saying, once you have some that shoot off, you actually trim back some of them so the energy goes out to some, the ones that are doing well, and and to have it grow the full season, and then some people leave them on the vine to dry out, or you can, once like the pumpkin, once it dries on the stalk, you cut it, and then you can, a lot of people take them into a warm, dry space, and you can wipe them down. There's different techniques. I don't, I've had some results, and I'm still learning. I'm definitely not a master of it, but it's been great to be pushed and learn from others, and then in turn be able to share some of that stuff. And as I should mention now, is on the last day of the show, October 30th, I'm going to do a Hue Hui, and anyone wants to come down, and we have some, you can see on the ground behind Maddie, there's a few Hue there, and we can actually process them, and I can show people how I like to cut them, clean them, what you're capable to do, and kind of like push that just technique and that. Yeah.
Awesome. You're doing my job for me, Nima.
Get it out of the way, eh? We can wrap this up now.
just before we move on to Rose installation, I see Kevin's just asked a question about the designs on the Hue and how you ornamentation. Do they have a particular source? He's asked. Oh,
thank you for asking. Yeah, like I said, there are quite a few different techniques, some from Aotearoa, some from Hawaii. The first one I did in the Hawaiian style of actually cutting it green, which is, sorry, I've been up since 3 a.m. Puehe, I think I'm saying it right. That technique is cutting the skin green, and I think it reflects to it being in a geometric pattern, which reflects the lashing of them. But I did the first one, which is our main one, which is the poster for our show. But the patterns on there are actually from my islands, and I wanted to kind of like reflect that here's this knowledge coming from one way, but I wanted it to not be a straight copycat bite of them, and that wasn't something I just got out of a book. That was Delani, who is someone who I look up to as a couple maker, and I asked her about this technique, and she was like, yeah, just go for it, and so I'm grateful for that guidance to learn that. But I did make it with my patterns. If you look at it, it's got patterns from my islands, patterns from the Cook Islands, and really wanted it to be that, as the show went on, because it did take so long. I had one idea of what the show was going to be, and then I'd learn a new technique, and then it would grow into that, and then another technique, and then you just kept going. I kept going down this little rabbit hole of Hue, of new ideas of it, and it just was like, if I can try and kind of reflect these different techniques and patterns, because some are also in the one that which is the fail, which I'm really proud to show at the show, and was really surprised on everyone, really excited about it. That is in a Maori pattern, and it was going to be same thing. It was going to be done in that Hawaiian style, but it was a fail. But I still saw the beauty in that, and what was so cool was to hear from others how they felt about it, and just that it is that reflection of life and death. Like all this time, I put all that time into growing it, having it green, nurturing it, getting to this point, then carving it, and just actually putting a little too much carve into it, and that's where it rotted, was in those spaces. And then it's the death, but the seeds are there, and the seeds are still good for the next season. And just to hear people's experience of it, and then to come to that realization with them has been really amazing. And but definitely trying to reflect our patterns of the Te Moana Nui Akiwa has been really great and fun to share. And that's pattern making is something that's born from my brother Croc, and my love for mark making, and how it's transferred into design and learning through that. So yeah, I think hopefully I answered something like that. There was an answer somewhere there.
I was going to say as well, just the piece Numa's talking about is, yeah, classed as the kind of unsuccessful piece, but ironically that has been the most popular in the show. Just from having conversations in the gallery, people just love that you can see the seeds and you just get that real sense that it is this natural resource you're working with. And I loved what you were saying about, you know, some of it is so time intensive. Some of them will be successful, like lots of the pieces, and others not so much, but there's still that beauty and kind of life to be shared. Thank you, Numa. And I thought we'd move on to Ro now. So Ro, you've got a really immersive installation in our back gallery, Waiting for the Early Dawn, which also is a collaboration with your son, Salvador Brown. So do you want to tell us a little bit about the your idea? And I know there's that beautiful link to Numa's works as well.
Yeah, when Numa was sort of talking about the Hue, I always kind of go into the Pūrākau, into the kind of the creation myth. So I found that the atua of the Hue is a female known as Hinepute Hue, and she was often left out of the stories, the creation stories, because she had a presence with the Māori creation story when the brothers were at war because they wanted to part the parents, and some of the brothers didn't want this to happen. Family didn't, you know, like any sort of separation of parent that's going to affect the siblings. So, and in particular, Tāwhiri Mātia, the atua of winds and storms, he went into a rage, into a blind rage, and started to attack his brothers, Tangaroa, Tāne, so he was attacking the land, the water, the sea, you know, so it was big hurricanes and things. But it was said that Hinepute Hue breathed in all that anger and animosity, and then when she breathed out peace. And the Hue is also used as a in one of the taonga poro things. There's the pōwhiowhio, which makes this beautiful sound, and of course the big, I'm not sure what the big the ones that you blow a chord. That's why I need my son. And it's this really deep, low, vibrating sound. So I was sort of looking at that, and then I was also sort of thinking, you know, through my Samoan lineage, that it's often in times of war. I mean, the role of the taupou, the role of the female, if her mana was so intact that she was able to walk through in between war parties and take messages and be part of the peacemaking process. So I was sort of, you know, and then actually that was when, you know, at that particular time, it was when Russia just had started to invade the Ukraine. So I was sitting there going, oh my gosh, here we are in the 21st century, and, you know, we're dealing with another major war again, started by men. And so I was sort of like just thinking about that. And for people who know me, they might know that I wear a lot of camouflage, or my fatigues, as I call them. So I'm fatigue, and a lot of people always ask me why I do wear camouflage a lot. And I don't know. I've just always worn it. I think a lot of it because it's sort of like we are at war. You know, I feel daily. You know, I feel attacked on the daily. I think that's a big part of it. So I was sitting there anyway, looking around going, what have I got that I haven't packed away? So I started to think about that pūrākau of Hinepute Hue, and also I don't know, I often hear things in sound. So I started to work with Salvador to create a sound bed that sort of built up through the wind, attacking the waves, and like this rage of Tāwhiri Mātia, and then there's a bit where you hear a breath inhaled, and then sort of a more peaceful, sort of lilting sort of sound comes to sort of, so that's the immersive thing. And then I was looking too at the at one of my army jackets, and I thought I was, and I don't know, I haven't embroidered for years, but I sort of, it was just, but I had some needles and thread, and I was just like, actually, it's such a kind of feminine sort of craft, embroidery. And so I sort of started to go about embroidering this army jacket, and there's a couple of patterns that I was looking at. I looked at on Numa. So I looked at the Whaatua Loa. I looked at the centipede, which was on the handle of one of Numa's things. So I actually put that on the sleeves, because that in Samoa is an atua. It's of war. It's a warrior, but it sort of represents also this ability to change, to be flexible, because the centipede sort of goes through a metamorphosis to grow. So you've got to kind of shed things to grow. So don't be so. And then I also was looking at the war clubs. A lot of our war clubs, you'll see little divine figures on them, and I always call them the make love not war clubs, because there's a lot of procreative aspects going on with these little figures that you see in the war club. So on the arms of the jacket, and here's my big confession, I didn't finish it, but I did. So on the arms I embroidered these little male and female figures, so to give this procreate, because out of destruction, you've got to sort of grow again. So, and they're quite subtle. They're on the arms. So I sort of treated the arms like the actual clubs. And then on the back, I did a big sort of my version of the splitting apart of Paparangi, but I did it using all the Samoan sort of kind of almost like the malu pattern, really. So there's, because for me, it's the four sides of the house. It's a very, the house of the people, and through the house, through the whare tangata, through this house of the people, that's where, humanity is sort of gained again. So, yeah, so I did something probably not many people used to be doing, actually, is I did a very kind of subtle embroidery thing. And yeah, and through, oh my gosh, my brain's, was that Waole Ola Le Toa, and it's a Samoan saying about bringing peace to out of war. And I was looking at, I found a legend actually, and it was looking at, because I always, I'm based in Aotearoa, and I've been brought up with our tangata whenua. So I've been always brought up with the Māori stories, the pūrākau, and then I always sort of go into my Samoan side and sort of try and find, because it seems to be harder for us to access our pūrākau. But I found this amazing story of the first war that came out of our creation myth too. So I always sort of knew, and so I've always gone, isn't that amazing? Out of even in our deep creation myths, there is war. So you sort of you come out of the big nothing. There's usually a whole lot of of eons of deep pour of darkness, and then became the land. Well, actually, there became the sky and the water, and then became the land. And in the Samoan myth, the rocks come up, and then they have a war with these other rocks, and then they create the land, and then the grass came, and then they had a war with the thing. So everyone was like, oh my God, everything was at war with each other. Sort of. But in terms of actually creating our land, then I found this really so, and now my memory's definitely foggy here, but it was a small legend, and I'll get Grace, I'll find it, the reference where I got it, but it was about how the word taua came out, and there was a couple, and it was really early on after these initial wars of the grass and the rocks and the birds and the fishes. And then there was a set of brothers and sisters and one was called Wa, like the rain. One was Tala, like to talk. And now my brain was sorry, I've forgotten the other two. I think it was like wind and something else. And they went to Papatia, and they got dealt to. They actually, like, especially Wa got struck on the back of the neck and died. And this created this whole other war from so I was really struck by that, because that's how they got the word Dowa, and it was actually to do with Wa getting struck on the back of the neck. So, and that's how it came with Dowa, which is one of the words for war. And then on further thing, a lot of the war parties went out in the mornings. They'd wait to that's why I call it waiting for the early dawn, because they would go and position themselves, and in that darkness that pre-tells dawn, that is when they would go and strike. So that's why I called it waiting for the early dawn. So there's sort of just some of the layers that went in. Yeah, and then the Samoans too, they said they would have these big baskets full of rocks, and that would signify each war that they had. So at the bottom on the floor, I have a big pile of rocks. So it's I gave up trying to count all my little battles, but I represented it with a big pile. Yes, and then the last thing was putting the conch shell on the rock. So it was like a little pai. It was sort of to signify the fact that the conch shell, the pumawano, is also another sort of way that would call to the warriors. So yeah, so that was my kind of all the layers. Yeah, so when you're standing in there, and this big storm comes up, and it really, people get kind of like and then it is an immersive sound thing. So it was good. And actually, because we didn't get any funding for this, and that was my other thing. I was just like, well, I just didn't have time, and I was just like, and also, as of lately, I've been doing these massive projects, and like you sit there, and then next minute you're up at 60K, 150K, and I'm sitting there going, oh my God, this is not particularly sustainable practice, if with these massive sort of installations and what they cost. So, and this was just really nice to just sit down in my studio and just look around with what I had. And I think the whole thing cost me about $300. Don't tell anyone. But
it's so interesting, Ro. I was just thinking when you were saying that, like, just the experience here, people have really, I remember you made a joke, people will probably walk in and out in a couple of seconds, but that's not what's been happening at all. Everyone's really kind of sitting down and engaging with the work. And the storm as well, it's been funny as it's been getting sunnier here, and you look outside, you can hear this raging storm, and you can see people like, is that here, is that outside? And you say, oh, just go through the curtain.
Don't worry about that. So so really it cost me time, and I haven't had a lot of time lately. And so that was really nice to just sit in is how I made friends with my new Portacom as well, because we've been kicked out of our studios, and I've got this Portacom which I was calling Art Jail, because it's got these bars across the windows, and I was sitting there sulking because I'd lost my beautiful studio. But I made friends, so through this project I've made friends with my Portacom, because I started to make it look nice. And then so that's the first artwork that was to come out of the Portacom, which I haven't even got a little name for that one yet. So
that we've been able to show here in the gallery spaces too. I'm just looking at the time, because I feel like we could talk about, there's so many layers in both the shows, we could talk about them for so long, but it's reaching 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. for you, and I can see the light cracking through, so it's probably time for us to wind down. But thank you both so much for sharing all that. It's so Yeah, it's so generous and so fascinating for us all to hear. Before we go, if anyone did have any other questions, we just answered Kevin's one in the chat before. Do feel free to pop one in the chat just before we head off.
It's
Or
like,
just out
oh,
loud.
Grace, yeah, just it's great to see you, Grace. I'm
It's
coming
so
to
good to
Sydney
see
after
you.
this. I know, but I want. It's like, yeah, I'm working with Latai for LiveWorks.
Yes.
I know.
Awesome.
So yeah, I got 3 weeks. 3 weeks in Sydney. So I'm not sure. Are you still in Melbourne?
I'm in Melbourne still.
Ah,
It was such a beautiful discussion. Thank you so much. A friend of mine put it in our Pacific Writers group, and I was like, I'm going. I'm going.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks.
So I was just like, oh, I'm gonna see her face. And it was just really beautiful to listen to everything today, because I was just like, I'm part of projects, and I just needed that that shift, that courage, that to be able to go, that little push to do some things that I need to do. So it's really beautiful to sit in this conversation and hear two
Go get some
amazing
rocks.
artists get the rocks, and my son just keeps carving it. He is the rock. This guy, he's the 3-in-1. He's the Trinity.
Oh,
He's
lovely.
everything. He's the third child. But thank you so much. It's so beautiful to listen to you both, and thank you for facilitating conversation so beautifully.
Yeah, Maddie, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I've just seen Jean's put a Google query in, just wondering what the query group is called to search for it.
Hue Korero. So I can write it in the chat, so you know the spelling. And yeah, it's just open for anyone who's curious about learning more about Hue. It's just like a community page. Yeah, we actually, my friend Therese Mangos kicked it off. Yeah, and just to share with anyone who's just interested in bringing the practice back to themselves. Like I really like, I tried to create those different vessels, some being water bottles, some being like a ladle, bowls, just all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'll check it in the chat right now.
Thanks, Numa. And on the back of that too, if anyone is here in Tamaki, that just reiterating that we're doing the Hue Hui on Sunday the 20th, and it's free. You just need to register by email. All the info is on our website. And also for those who are overseas, which has been so nice to have you here from Melbourne. Like I said before, the exhibition it's showing for another 3 weeks here, but everything is available online too at the Corbins website. So please do have a look. You can see some really beautiful photographs and read a bit more about the shows too.
Yay.
Cool. But I think so thank you both so much, and thank you all for coming. Yeah, we really enjoyed listening, and definitely keep engaged with the show.
See you when we get back.
Yeah, and say enjoy your day over there.
Much appreciated.